Hi, it's Sherry St. Marie, and we are going to talk about taking on change. So, this is a topic that I was asked to do. I love that with my network. So, you guys give me comments and questions and things like that. And apparently, everybody wants to talk about change. And I thought, you know what? This is a perfect time. January 1st, it happens to be, but it could be any old day. We can talk about this, right? So, we are going to talk about taking on change in a very different way. So, if you haven't caught on yet, I'm a street smart adult educator, right? I am doing things in a different fashion, whether you're watching my, short videos or content or longer classes or talks. I am doing things in a manner, and actually I've been doing it since the 90s with my high school students. Just in a fashion that adults can learn easier and better. So there's a change, right? Adults don't like to sit in a boring seminar. What a surprise. They like to be able to learn on their own time, learn in a way that affects all of their adult ways that they like to learn and all that kind of stuff. Last night I did a dive over the couch, right? And somebody made a comment to me of, gosh, that really, surprised me or whatever. As a street smart teacher, you got to be able to hold the interest. You got to be able to have good content. You have to be able to take care of auditory and visual and all those different learning styles. Hello. And so those are changes that I've made over time, right? I used to be in a classroom physically, or if I was a professional speaker, you'd have to be standing on a stage in front of somewhere. I'm so incredibly thankful, both on the teaching spot and the speaker spot of, God, I just need a mic and I can do that wherever I want to, wherever I'm at in my mobile life, and be able to do this kind of stuff. So perfect example of change to get us started. So I'm going to do a couple different things tonight, and I'm going to free flow because that's kind of my style when I get this sort of topic, because really, like, what change you want to talk about. So originally this idea for this class spurred from somebody who had asked me, how hard is it to change careers? And I've actually had a lot of people who ask me that. Where it's coming from specifically is I used to be a career teacher way back in the day and high school marketing teacher, but it is because I also work for a real estate company, EXP Realty, and we are a global company. And so one of the pieces that I do as a part of my business is help people join EXP. And so it's a career change, right? And I can help anybody in the world. So I've had people from California, Florida, Arizona. I've had people who are, high school principals, administrators. I've had people who are VPs, all that stuff. And so originally the question came from, is it hard to change a career? And then of course I pull everything bigger and go, let's look at the bigger question about how hard is it to change was the tipping point of kind of some of these things. And of course, I'm clearly aware that right now we've had so much change this year. And I swear some video, I'm not going to talk about this. So one time we're going to get into a video where I don't have to bring up life change, society, COVID, all that stuff, but we're going to keep working at it. Why I bring that up is we do have some change that has been incredibly way too much. So I'd like to acknowledge that tonight when we're talking about taking on change. It has been a fire hose of change. That's kind of my joke about learning new things sometimes. Of like, it's like drinking from a fire hydrant, right? I have drank from a fire hydrant several times in my lifetime. And it's kind of what, some of our change was last year. It doesn't mean it's not bad and not good. So an example is, my God, you're lucky you're getting a ton of fresh water. Let me tell you that much. That's a great thing. It's just maybe a little too much at the time for you to consume, but change can be absolutely fabulous. I want to take 1 second and snap over to the chats and say hello. Thank you so much for showing up, guys. I appreciate that tremendously. And so we'll just kind of see how this goes along. I'll pop back and forth between things I'm going to present to you and check in the chat as best I can. So this is what we're going to talk about tonight. How hard is change? And really, who wants a class about things that are hard, right? But the answer to that question is, how hard is change? It depends on how hard you want it to be, right? It depends on a lot of different things of what you were taught about change. And I'll get into some of that in just a little bit. So this question of how hard it is to change, I can tell you. So I'll give you a little bit of background outside of what you might know about me. I have actually worked as a life coach on and off since the 90s. That's a long time. I have most recently I should back up 1 second. So I was working private one-on-one with life coaching with people. Then I realized I love doing it. I love seeing the change in people. I love helping people thrive. It feels amazing to be able to help in that manner. And I also realized it's just so much to one-on-one coach with somebody. I love it for that individual and I love it for myself, but I couldn't help enough people. That's what caused me to swing out onto social media in the first place, actually. And so I could do these little videos that I do that a lot of you are familiar with, and I could do micro coaching. That's technically what I'm doing. I'm doing micro coaching when I'm putting out my video content or my social media content. And I did that for a long time. And then this last year, I swung back into one particular area of coaching. And there's a reason for that. So what I know from that group of people, and they happen to be business owners, is who I chose to do personal development coaching. And the reason I chose that group of people is they needed a lot of different kind of support than what they're typically used to getting in executive coaching. And by me being able to help that individual who I have a whole lot of support and admiration and everything for what they're carrying and what they have built and what they're trying to do, and for them to be able to have their own beautiful, great life, they're carrying a lot. So that's the one piece, direct into them. The other piece was by making that decision, it affects everybody in their organization, which is those of you out there who are working for them. And so I thought, you know what, with that one great intense, piece, it gets out to a lot of different people. So that was, another change up. Why I bring that stuff up is how hard is change. I have learned a ton in the last several years about change, both personally and with coaching tons and tons and tons of people. Every single day I interact with thousands of people. And so I've learned a lot about how hard is change. It depends on the change we're talking about, right? So some things are incredibly difficult. Some of them, and I want to be sensitive all the time. So I give feedback based on what in general we're talking about. I want to also give a sensitivity comment to this class tonight. If it is somebody who has gone through, we've had a lot of big hardships this year and previous years, right? If it is somebody who has dealt with the loss of somebody this year in particular, or somebody who's still dealing with loss, some of these things I'm speaking about are not for you. Some of the comments are too harsh in terms of, where you might be at or those sort of things. Some people have lost their homes. Some people have lost their livelihood and their ability to provide for their family. So I make that comment in terms of how hard is it to change with some sensitivity. And also, the advice may not be for you, but here's an example. How hard is change? Well, I might have chosen to change jobs myself, but because I didn't, I'm now in a spot, let's say, that you have lost your job. And that might be the best thing for you. I do understand it's incredibly difficult when you lose a job and you're worried about payment. And we have, 30 million people without health insurance right now and all those sorts of things. Sometimes that is in your best interest just to get you moving and going to something different that is even better for you, that you wouldn't have let go of on your own. So I bring that up just to put a little seed in your mind for whatever that might be. But the comment of how hard is change, it depends on you. It depends on you. It depends on your perception. It depends on what you have learned and are still hanging on to about change. It depends on, do you want to? Are you being forced to? What was the change? So obviously, little changes like I'd like you to sleep on the other side of the bed might feel weird for a while, but you can deal with it. You can change. It will be okay. Changes that are bigger, sometimes are a little bit, more difficult. What I'm hoping for in this class tonight is that by us sharing some of these ideas, it makes it a little bit easier, because you might hear just one thing tonight. That's what I'm hoping for. If I can make a difference for one person, and if I can give them one little oh my gosh, this made it so much easier, I'm thrilled. It was worth it tonight. I'm happy to be here with you. So we talked about this a little bit, I'm going to go into just a little bit of we would like to say, it depends on the person, right? Who's the person? Children change incredibly easy. Children change incredibly easy. And every 5 years we go through our life, particularly as adults and more mature adults, and particularly past 50, every 5 years we get more set in our ways. That kind of is a pistol comment for me. So I'm I refuse to be that. I have a mother who is 74 years old. She is so not set in her ways. I cannot tell you. And that's great motivation we don't have to be that way, We don't have to get to the place where, because you've spent a particular amount of time or decades in a certain lifestyle or way or whatever, you need to stay there. Clearly, growth mindset, which is what I have a lot, that I want to constantly be learning and growing and changing, helps a lot. People that are in a set mindset, opposite of growth mindset, they're the people that cannot change their mind very easily. They're very set on, this is the way it was, this is the way it will be forever, this is what we're doing. You're gonna have a harder time with change, obviously. And so it kind of depends. What's the perspective of the person? So we all have different perspectives, and I respect that. Your perspective will depend on easy, hard, on change. That's just what it is. And what's your approach, right? So I'm going to show you something. I always give you a little bit of a whatever. So I, of course, have painter's tape because I'm a realtor and I do a lot of new construction and painting and staging. So I have got this painter's tape, and I would like this piece of peppermint bark. You probably can't see it really good with the lights. And so I want this peppermint bark, and I keep trying to pull it through. I'm trying to get my hand through here, right? And this might either be me trying to hang on to my spouse or my date or a girlfriend or my whatever, might be my job, might be I just want the candy, the treat, the fun thing. And all I keep doing is trying to pull it through here. That's the only strategy I've got, because guess what? For 10 decades, 4 decades, 3 decades, that's all I've known how to do. Instead of let go, pull your hand out of the monkey trap, right? And pick up the piece of chocolate. I show that to you because, now look at this. So many people get stuck in this. This is your problem right here. This is your problem. There we go. You just need to let it go and figure out a different way. So let it go can be a different strategy. Try something different. Let it go can be purely, if it is not working, if you cannot get it back, if nothing will change it, you honestly have no other choice but to let go of what you wanted and get your hand out of the trap. And you might find a better piece that you like a whole lot better, let me tell you. Or you have the chance to keep hanging on to that thing, keep staying with the same strategy, the same stuck mindset, the same everything you've been doing for as long as you want or don't want to. You might think that, oh, gosh, I can't help it. This is what I've done. No, let go of the thing, and you can pick it up in a different way. Or if it really, you can't get it back, you have no choice but to pivot, turn your head, and go pick something different, because we make things really hard on ourselves. And a lot of it is just coming to acceptance. That's usually a lot of the challenge for any of us, myself included, when we can't get to the acceptance part of why something is not working the way you'd like to, or you're not wanting to change and you're feeling a force for it. So I'm just going to stop a second and check on these chats. Yes. So Jonathan's talking about, some changes imposed upon us. Gosh, I've had lots of different things. So of some changes imposed upon us. And so there's feelings, right? When change is posed upon us, sometimes we're thrilled. Sometimes we're thrilled when a change was put upon us and got us out of something we didn't want to deal with. We're maybe happy the change happened to us, and it doesn't have to be our fault, because you know what? That person did it. They're the ones that forced the change or whatever. Sometimes it is, we didn't have a say or an option. So it can either be a good or bad thing when something is forced upon us. I'm going to stop here. I'm going to say a few things tonight, a little harsher than I normally do. If a change is forced upon us, you still have the opportunity, and it is within your control, no matter what, to decide to do it differently. We all have that option. So even if something has been put upon us, it wasn't fair, we're angry, all of those kind of things, we still have a choice, So here's an example. Something, let's say, was put upon this person, and they are, furious and upset and all of that stuff. Part of what you have to look at is, how long do you want to feel that way? How long would you like to feel that way? And when you decide, because you know what, trying to blame the other person or thing or situation almost always doesn't fix or change it. If you look at your own life, part of what I want you to do tonight is look at your own life and some of the stuff I'm talking about. So if you look at your own life, how long did you perseverate? How long were you stuck? How long were you not accepting? There are people who have had even major, massive life events. And right away in that moment, they made a decision to say, it's not fair. I'm ticked off. It shouldn't have been this way. It doesn't matter. But I'm choosing with grace to turn and go, okay, what's next for me? There are people who do that. You may choose not to. And again, I'm going to respect your changes and what you'd like to do, but I'm going to share and show, a couple of those things tonight. So a lot of it really does come down to us and how we approach change. Here's the thing that Jonathan was just talking about. Did the change happen to you or did you choose it? We tend to think it's easier if we chose it. We tend to think it's easier if I chose it. If I chose it, then it means it's a good thing. It means that I wanted it. Not necessarily. I have had to make some incredibly hard change decisions in my life. And it was a whole lot harder to be the one to stand up and do the right hard thing than it was even sometimes arguably to go, I'm not going to change it. I'm going to stay in this situation, But in a general population, we tend to think if we picked it, it's 100% easier. That's not true. So part of our thinking that we get taught is this whole concept here. Part of what I challenge you tonight in your own thinking is that an excuse? Yeah, it's a whole lot easier because they picked that, so then they must have wanted it. Maybe not necessarily. Maybe that's letting you stay in your situation of, but I didn't pick it, so I get to sit here and be in this. That might be a way you're letting yourself off the hook. I don't see any of these things in blaming. I say them in, let's challenge some of our thinking and some of the things that we are looking at and going about in our lives. Because when it comes to change, the greatest thing for us is to learn and practice our entire life to be more flexible, more give and take. We are a very attached or detached society a lot of times. So let me spend 1 second here. This concept is about part of why change is really, really hard is we get really attached and really controlling. That makes change a whole lot harder. So when we can practice this whole idea of being attached and detached at the same time, which might sound different, I'll do a different class on that maybe, it makes it a whole lot easier. To be able to go, I appreciate you in my life, but I respect and love you to go do what you need to do and let that go back and forth. Instead of normally what we do is this control thing of, well, it's got to work like this and you and I have to behave this way. And then here's what we do. No, not necessarily. As long as those people are able to figure it out, or we get too attached to our jobs, or not at all attached to our jobs. Those things all make a difference in how easy it is to change things. Part of my concept has always been about work. I will always work. I just don't know where. That's always been my attitude about work. And so I care and I love what I'm doing and all that kind of stuff. But it isn't like, oh my gosh, I'm okay if I work at this place. And if anything should happen to that, then I'm not okay. A lot of that helped me in changes throughout my career and things that I'm doing. So if that might be helpful to you. Yeah, this is exactly what I was telling you. What you learned about change might be keeping you in a funk. Now, here's what's happening. So you learned something about change at work or at home or in sports or at an organization or something, and probably all those places. You probably are having a hard time to even see what's the funk about that. Because we don't often sit and say, let's question that. So I'll give a sports example. A sports coach example. We have previously, and we're changing a little bit, had this attitude that if you don't teach people how to be tough in sports, you're never going to win. I have always challenged that, and I've been around sports and coaches a long time. I have always challenged that because that is a one way of thinking. And the way is, right, if I don't teach you tough, if I don't humiliate you, if I don't, all this stuff, you're never going to know how to grit it out, get fire in your belly. I agree with fire in your belly. There's no question about it. But what if we teach sports this way? How would you like to be smarter and more strategic than the other team? Wouldn't that feel awesome? Because guess what? That transfers to work and life a whole lot better than I'm going to be tougher and more aggressive than you, because those days are kind of gone. Do you see that? If I'm going to teach you, wouldn't it feel awesome to figure out in your own brain, not with me telling you exactly this is what you got to do? That'd be feel pretty awesome, right? Different thing, get to the net, different thing, get to the touchdown, different thing to get to goal, right? Why don't we teach our people that? That would be a change. And so the old funk might be, I can't do anything unless I grind and grit, and my coach is the one who told me what to do. Do you see that problem? My coach told me what to do, and so that I can do it. And I either get yelled at or I get praised about it. We're not really teaching them how to think and to feel really awesome about growing themselves and learning and getting that fire in their belly because they want it. Not necessarily about the win, but about the like, I did that. I challenged that. That was awesome. That felt good. I want to do it again. Right. So one example of funk and change. That's just something good for you to look at. Sometimes people have a hard time looking at, am I in a funk about what I know about change? And you have to talk to somebody else. So I think that's important. Some of us notice right away when I'm like, oh yeah, I kind of noticed as I've moved along, the thing I used to be taught was not so good. Other people can't see it. And that is what's good about us having conversations. That's what's good about you talking to another leader at work. That's what's good of talking to people that are opposite of you, in whatever dynamic that may be, because it helps you see things differently. It helps you see, do I have a funk about change or something like that? So that might be helpful to you. How do you feel about being humble? This is really important. And so I think an easier way to change is to get really comfortable with super flippin' humble. And so I can tell you that in that we've all had a lot of different changes, right? I have had, a couple executives that have gotten into a position where they are now, working at a grocery store to take care of their family. That's having to be really, really humble, and to show up and to do the same work ethic when you are not the one leading anymore, but you are the one with pride, taking a shower, getting dressed, going to that job, doing that job of bagging groceries, the exact same as you would have done your executive job. That's pretty humble and it's pretty amazing, right? All of us have had different times when we have felt incredibly humble. A lot of the changes that we've had to do this year can be pretty humbling. Sometimes it's not that deep and heavy. Sometimes it's just a need to be humble, like I'm having to retrain and learn a new job. That happened to an awful lot of us this year, or we chose it or it happened to us. I've had to be really humble, and so you don't see this on this platform, but another one, I'm very self-deprecating humor because I'm like, oh my gosh, if it's embarrassing, like I might as well be the first one to laugh at myself. And it makes it so much easier. So I have learned to be incredibly humble. I realize some of the new challenges and things I'm taking on, they're going to look like, oh my Lord, what's this woman doing? And I just go, you know what? People respect about me. I'm willing to show up and give it a shot, even though somebody else would have said, oh, she shouldn't have been in that arena at all in that situation. I'm still going to show up. I'm still going to go, yep, you know what? I gave it my best shot, or I'm the first person to tell you, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm here because you invited me and I'm willing to give it my best shot. That's it, right? And so the humbleness and making humble not feel a deprivating thing, where lots of times we as humans are judgy on each other. Being humble is actually a really strong character, because that means that we totally understand the graciousness of opportunities, of growing, of jobs, of people, of all of those kind of things. So sometimes change is learning to look at humble differently, just because, let's say I'm in this position right now doesn't mean I will be next year. Just because I'm in this position right now doesn't mean I'm a different person than you know me to be. It just happens to be the physical thing that I'm doing. And there's an awful lot of graciousness with being humble, I think, which is pretty cool. Are you adventurous about change? I think it makes it so much easier if you're adventurous. And so a lot of people are very respectfully logical and careful and deciders. And those are wonderful traits. They are traits actually I like in my life because it's not as much my thing. I have different skill sets and things like that. But having an adventure attitude helps tremendously. So I have found that the things that I feel, I'm going to tell an embarrassing story when I was in college. I have found that things that were hard for me, when I take this adventurous attitude about the change, it again makes it so much easier. So this is kind of embarrassing, but one of the classes I had to take in college was a law class. I at one point wanted to be a lawyer, actually. And when I found out you have to defend them even if they're guilty, I was like, I can't do that. There's no way. And that was the end of law for me. But anyway, I am having to take this educational law class, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is like massive volume of very different reading than what I'm used to. And how am I going to do this and everything? And I decide, listen, when it's feeling that challenging, and I was working really hard on my grade point average, and it mattered to me a lot. I was like, okay, you know what? All I can do this whole semester is when I study and I take these tests, I'm going to pretend I'm a lawyer. And so my sister used to laugh at me tremendously. She was a year older than me in college. And she'd be like, are you in the library pretending you're a lawyer? And I'm like, yeah, I even got these fake glasses. And so I'm in the library, I'm pretending I'm studying, I'm going to become a lawyer, and I'm really smart, because lawyers are smart people. And I went through that whole class. Well, then I did my master's, and I do another law class. And funny, I was very pregnant with my second child during that time. And I did the same thing again of like, oh my gosh, this feels like so much to me, but I got to get through this thing. And I have another child at home, and like, how do I do all this stuff? And I'm like, listen, you're a lawyer, you're having your second kid. We need to figure this out. And that jokingly got me through the whole thing with a decent grade on both of them, and finished the situation. I want to bring out to you too, this thing on, are you adventurous about change? Lots of people will tell me I'm not, Sherry. I'm not like you. And believe me, there's other places I'm not adventurous. So about accounting, I am not adventurous at all. I'm like, no, thank you. I don't like it. But adventurous there are places in your life that you are adventurous. So I am thinking about one particular person right now. And so in that particular category, the person is incredibly adventurous. And then in an opposite place that's a hard change for the person, they go, I just habitually keep doing the same thing. And I go, you need to recognize you're able to be adventurous about change. You're able to be adventurous about change, because look at this category. We'll call that category blue. And this one's red that this person's having a hard time with. Look at in blue, you're awesome. In blue, you just go, yeah, this is fun. I want to try this and that and whatever and learn this. So that's awesome. And you just need to get stuck out of the rut of this over here by going, you are able to be adventurous about change. You do like certain change. Variety is good for people. If we were not variety and we were not change, do you know how boring we would be? And do you know where we'd be at? I realize we have issues with society, but do you know where we would be at if we weren't adventurous as humans? We would not be in the advances and the good things and the opportunities that we are at. And so I bring that up to you for consideration as well. Here's one. I'm going to play this hard and soft. So I'll play good cop, bad cop. I'm going to play it, nice teacher, bad teacher. I'm going to play it soft and hard right here. So the question is, what do you have to lose? You can read it two ways, right? What do you have to lose? That's me if I got to get myself into something that feels like I'm big and hard on a change that I'm like, oh, God. Mine is like, oh, heck, what do I got to lose? Like, what's the worst that can happen to me? Like, okay, fine. It helps me do it so that you can do it in a light way. But that what do you have to lose? Now, as a bad cop or hard teacher, what do you have to lose? Here's a harsh one. If you do not change, what are you going to lose? So for some people, the change they're talking about is you're about to lose your spouse. What are you willing to do to not lose that person and your family? That would be an example of what do you have to lose? Like, you're going to lose your job because of what you were doing. Are you willing to lose the job for that? That's what you're going to lose if you don't change. So you can read that one either way. And you could just make it easier on yourself, a ton easier. So lots of people get stuck in this thought of I have to play it hard, meaning I have to play bad cop on myself. I have to be really harsh on myself. I have to go, what are you going to lose? Get yourself together. Da, da, da. I challenge you to say, no, you don't. You could make that so much easier by going, it isn't the pain of what I'm going to lose, because that's old teaching and old training. We're going to switch to something else. What could you gain? What could you gain if you changed? That's easier. It is. So part of what gets us fired up to make a change and to deal with change is, what could I gain? And what could I gain could be just incredibly fun. It could be incredibly enhancing in your life. It could be really pleasurable. It could feel awesome. It could be something like, I get this on my resume. If I'm willing to make this change, if I'm willing to take these risks, if I'm willing to do this thing. What could you gain is also things about your character and who you are and all of those kind of things that might matter to you. So I question this whole thing of change is a whole lot easier if you look at what's a gain. What could you gain? How do you make it exciting? How do you make yourself want to? I'm willing to do a whole lot of my humble adventures looking at what I could gain rather than what I could lose, because the lose tends to keep me stunted and not trying and really hard on myself. And it's a whole lot easier to look at what could I gain. Do you want it to be easy or you want it to be hard? Like, that's up to you. So here's the situation. Everything can be hard. Pick your hard, right? So an example a lot of people will say to me is, gosh, Sherry, I'm not like super healthy. I don't even have regular workout routines necessarily. But anyway, here's the thing. I choose to not overconsume. I choose to not eat a ton of processed food every day. And people will say, God, isn't that hard? Or why do you pick that or whatever? It's a whole lot easier to do that. And it actually doesn't bother me at all than it is to do the hard of making all those choices year on end. And I am 53 and I would look different and I would feel different had I made the decision all the time of, I don't feel like doing the, what you call hard thing of, moving and eating good produce and drinking water and sleeping. Either is hard. Which one do you want to do? And so I switch that whole category of, what do you want to do for hard? Like, here's a deal. I'm in a particular situation, let's say, that's miserable. And I do not want to feel like that again next year. I'm not willing to do that hard again. So instead, I'm willing to do the hard of this adventure to figure out how next year I'm not going to feel that hard again. So that is a way to look at that. The other thing is, you can do this easy, and myself included. So all the areas that I feel still challenged in and all that kind of stuff, you could do it easy. How do you do it easy? Easy can be just by making a decision. It can be that simple, particularly if it's something you're stuck on and perseverating about. You can purely make a decision to go, I see that differently now. I'm going to choose to see that differently because it doesn't serve me to stay stuck in the perseverating. That can be easy. Easy can be the thing of, all right, show me how to do that. Instead of, oh my gosh, I've spent 2 months or 7 months trying to avoid the project because I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to tell you, my boss, this is a thing for workers, employers. I don't want to tell you I don't know what I'm doing. Our time and stressing myself because I don't want to tell you. What's easier is to say, could you help me with this, get started? Or I was a little bit confused on what you were wanting me to do here. I went in a different direction. Could we talk about that? That 5-minute conversation is easy, and off down a corrected path you go. That's a whole lot easier than perhaps what you maybe were doing. Easy can be letting go and letting it flow. That's a thing. There are lots of times in my life where I would swim upriver, right? And I would be like heads down. And some of it's because I didn't know any better or different, right? We only know what we've experienced in life. We only have the people around us that have shared wisdom and stuff until we meet new people, until we experience a new thing, until we get a new job and they teach us, until I learn or read something that helps me do different. And so a lot of times in different categories, I'd be swimming upriver, and I can sometimes get an attitude about like, I got it, I'm going to make this happen. This is because I'm doing it hard, right? Instead of, gosh, Sherry, let go and float down river and then swing the turn. Like, oh my God, that was easy. That was fun. I didn't know how to do it that way. But again, let go or let down the river. That's an easy piece to do. Again, we talked about pick your hard, and pick your easy. I'm gonna pick easy as much as I can. I am done doing hard. I ready. I'm going to go through fast, just a couple categories, right? Because what we've talked about so far is different concepts and different places to use. It depends on the change in the subject matter. So if you are changing a career, that might be a whole lot harder. It might not be. So sometimes an opportunity comes to you and you go, Okay, sure. So when I started my real estate career, it was from being laid off in education from budget cuts. And I was super lucky to have some teachers trust me when I was a broker on my own right out day one, and had some teachers that were willing to help me out. And everybody was like, oh my God, how did you dare do that? How'd you figure out what you were doing? Well, guess what? My other option felt harder. I didn't want to put my choice, not my three kids, into daycare and not see them. I wanted to see my kids as much as I could, and I wanted and needed to work. I figured it out. So in my career change, first of all, I was pushed off a cliff and I was scared, but thank you. It was great, wonderful thing. I had to then figure it out. Okay, now I am almost 18 years into this deal, and I'm swinging parts of my career. So I do lots of different things, as you can see. One example of swinging the career is I'm swinging it to a different state and different location, all that kind of stuff. Parts of it are different. I'm doing it different than I did 18 years ago. Now I'm in a place where, okay, I'm seasoned and there's particular things that I need to switch up or learn or whatever, but I can also do it in an easier manner, gamifying it. And I'm doing it with a team where before I was doing it by myself. That makes it so much easier and better. And I'm really, really careful about the professionals that we're working with and all that kind of stuff. Made it a whole lot easier. Depends on, is your career a whole different change or not? We are getting into an area where, do you need a degree? Do you need a master's? Do you need an MBA? Is really a big discussion. And so those kind of things are switching up, and they're good for us. Right now, we are having some of the greatest upskilling and reskilling that we will have in our history. This is great for us. And it's okay if you're sweating. It's okay if it's painful. And it's okay if you're thrilled and excited about all of the upskilling and changing. Here's a tip. It is the easiest right now to change careers. It is the most understandable. It is the most accepted and welcomed and great opportunity right now, because the only caveat I give you on the career is if you have other people that you need agreement with, meaning somebody at home or those sorts of things, don't make a big, huge, wild idea. If you've got people that you legally and financially are in agreement with, please make sure you got, not that, I mean, you guys do your thing, but I'm just saying, I'm not giving wild advice of like, oh, go change your career right now. It is, if you have the opportunity to do so and you need to or you want to, again, it is just a perfect time because we can all understand it. And we are all upskilling. And again, people accept it pretty easily. I'm going to check the chat 1 second. I appreciate you guys showing up. Alicia, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you. I'm just reading her comments here, and then they'll come back up and I'll comment to them when we're inside the chat, so you can see that differently. And that's exactly it. So much of what she's talking about is the different perspective on things and different angles. It helps us all. So many people help me. So I am so thankful for all the people in my life that help me look at things differently, help me where I'm looking small or thinking small, because I've always been a micro in my career and that kind of thing. I like to do it myself. I don't like to manage, and I don't like to hand it off and all that stuff. And so I micro do a lot of my things. Lots of them go out big macro into you guys and whatever, but a lot of what I'm functionally doing is me, and I'm the one. And so I've had a lot of help this year in get your head up, or how about this, or how about that. And so I appreciate that. Again, topics of how hard is it to change your behavior? Depends on you. At everything I've talked about so far, right? We as humans are very habitual. We're really habitual. We are also able to not be habitual. We are able to change our behavior. I have seen everybody have the opportunity, if they would like it, to change their behavior for both, hopefully good. But even people, that, let's say you're struggling with a bad behavior, half the time it's the way we go about it that's the problem. So we have a very old and failing rate of changing behavior, if you look at that. So let's look at classic things that we have about changing human behavior. Counseling and just talking. For some people it works. For other people it does not work. But that's usually what we'll tell people. Like, you need to go to counseling. Well, for some people that doesn't work for them. That's not the best thing for them. For some people to constantly keep talking about the whatever is difficult is not in their best ability, but we used to be stuck on that's just the only way you can do that. Let's say it is addiction and recovery. We have been very stuck on, certain methods that, don't have a high success rate, or give them medication. We need to get to a better place where we are having other choices that you can do about that in order to change behavior. I'm going to tell you something, two down, so I'm going to hang on to this. But again, I will tell you, I have every single confidence. There's not a single person who cannot change their behavior, whatever it is, if they would like to. That is not to put upon you anything harsh, but is to put upon you the excitement and the inspiration that I know it's absolutely possible. You just might be riding the bike backwards. That's all. And so you just need to get around somebody that helps you realize, oh, if you turn the bike this way and sit on it like that, oh, it works. I see how that goes. And so it is definitely possible. You cannot change somebody else's behavior, though, and I will get into that. Change yourself as a human being. That is absolutely possible and doable. And if you look in history, we have seen so much of that constantly and all the time. I think what's fun, I like it. So obviously I've been into personal development since I was 17. I have been reading self-help books, now they're called self-improvement or personal development, all that time. You can absolutely change yourself. Sometimes it's a lot of fun. It doesn't have to be this hard yuck. That's what I'd like to change for people. It doesn't have to be this difficult, miserable, like, oh my gosh, I don't like this. It can be a fun adventure and a game and all of that kind of stuff. As you know, I do a ton on YouTube. So not even just now my content's going there, but also I'm in there every single day learning something that changes myself. Obviously, we have a ton of different resources going on right now, and that's the part that's super cool. And the bazillion of it is free, and I love that because it's access, right? It's like a whole different library concept, and I love that part. How hard is it to change a relationship? You can't. You can't unless both people or the people involved in the relationship are wanting to. There you go. So we have also had a history of constantly trying to change the other person in our relationship, right? Whether that be work or that be personal or your children or whatever. We use tactics that don't necessarily work very well. And the truth of it is you can't change another person and you can't change a relationship unless you both want to and you're both willing to work at it and you're both willing to be accountable adults that care for the same mission and the same drive. It's not possible. However, if you choose to change a relationship because it was forced upon you, meaning like, here's an ultimatum and here's the deal, or we've gotten in this crisis spot, and we want to fix this, we want to save this, we want to whatever, it's totally possible. There's no question about it. It is just, again, up to both of those two individuals to do so. I think we do more damage to our relationships, whether they be with our child or adult children, or our personal relationships, or even a boss employee or an employee or any of that, by us trying to change something and the other person is not going to change, because all it does is create this, right? All it does is this. So my 3 children are adults now. A lot of people are surprised at, I was very a flex parent with them, So a lot of it, I understood. I was not going to use discipline and bullying. I mean, when they were little, of course, right? Like if you're running out in front of the car, we're going to have a sit down, right? But after that, it was like every semester and year of their life, I backed up, letting them have conversations and what do we need to do. And I'm always, still the parent until, they're out of the house now. But a lot of that was, I didn't do it the way everybody else did. And obviously I was a high school teacher before that I had kids, and I learned a lot. That's the piece of it. Why my children turned out the way they did was because they chose to participate. And I chose to participate. And we worked together as a cohesive thing. And none of it was threatening or me, I pay the money so you don't get to, or whatever. All of it was this whole concept of, we want our relationship to be great. We want to trust each other. We want to be able to talk about all kinds of things. We want to be there when it's hard. We want to be there to celebrate. We're willing to talk about the hard things. We're willing to do the hard things. But if any of the 4 of us were not willing, you can't necessarily make that happen. You can discipline a child until they're 18. A lot of parents do that. And it doesn't go well, because guess what I knew before I even had children? They will choose at 18 as best they can. I'm done with this relationship. I'm done with this relationship. So whether I have to go without funds or whatever I have to do, I'm willing to do it because I don't want this relationship. What I was working on the whole time is I want my kids to choose me when they don't have to. right? So that was my interest the entire time I was raising children. And again, work relationships, half the reason we have a lot of conflict at work is we are trying to change the boss or we're trying to change the employee. And really, a lot of times, unfortunately, they aren't the right fit and it needs to change. And rather than that person, that usually that boss is not ever going to change. That employee, if you're really having a challenge with them, they aren't going to change. This is probably not the best thing. And so I bring that up just in terms of what's awesome is quit controlling people, quit being over attached to people, quit trying to change something that doesn't have the capacity to be different. That would help us a whole lot in happily accepting changes and things like that. This is a big one, and we are just about done. How hard is it to change an identity? Here's where I'll spend a little bit of different time. Our identity is a big, huge thing. And a lot of us get socialized and taught, I am a daughter, I am a wife, I am a sister, I am a worker, I am a whatever it is. And those identities, we are taught, look at yourself, through the majority of our lives to carry that as that is who I am. And what happens if we have to change an identity, whether by choice or it was given to you, sometimes that creates a tremendous amount of pain because we are very attached to the identity. I've done this myself, so that's why I can also speak about it, right? And so part of identity is you can change your identity. You can change your identity easy or hard depending on. So let's go down the identity road and play all these games. Let's say you have a reputation. It's really what identity is. Sometimes it's a role or it's a reputation, right? Let's say you have an identity that you're really not that fabulous of a person. You're kind of making some jackwagon decisions. You're kind of treating people not so great and all that kind of stuff. How hard is it to change that behavior? Not with your mouth. Not with your mouth. How you would change that behavior is you're going to need to work on yourself, right? Work on your behavior. And you're going to have to show people with your constant daily decisions and outcomes that you're different. So I have somebody actually not too long ago where we had this exact conversation where he had been unfortunately in a not great situation, made lots of not good decisions. And it took him years to be able to prove back who he really is and trust and all that kind of stuff. Other times it's easy. So, right. Like I wasn't a mom and then poof, I'm a mom. That was easy. So sometimes changing identity is easy. Other times it can be painful, So other times it can feel like, and if you've ever had the experience where all of your identity is taken from you, I mean, like in several roles, it can feel like a very altered reality because you've had decades being something and all of a sudden you're not. And so I do respect and understand that. And I now want to teach all of you something about identity. Even though some of it can be fun and exciting identity changes and others can be painful and that kind of stuff, again, I will teach you and share. Us being so overly identified to an identity is what causes an awful lot of pain, especially when we have good changes into an identity and then painful changes out of an identity. And so one of the pieces to work at is I am not my identity necessarily. I'm not attached to it. And so I have learned how to do that. I have learned how to be, this is who I am like as a human in the world. And I may or may not have these roles. I may or may not get the role again. But this is who I am. And that was some of the most freeing stuff that I can tell you I have done probably in that category of identity. So I think the important thing to take a look at is we are over-identified with identity. And again, the softer piece about it is you can have it, you can be proud of it, it can be a great part of your life and all of that, but it can't be your everything. So I'll give you an example, easy, concrete, right? Being a mom was like the biggest thing in my entire world. Like that was everything. Well, they're supposed to grow up. They're supposed to go on. It was massively painful to lose that identity of the everyday with my kids in the house and all that kind of stuff. Other people are like, we're so thrilled they're gone. Let's go, let's do this, let's do that. That was tough for me, but learning how to have a different identity about it has been so much easier and nicer and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of it has to do with attachment and the way we were taught identity and what that means about us if we have it and what it doesn't mean about us if we don't. and having to character build back out of bad identities, or you had a good one and you lost it, or any of those kind of things. So it's really worth looking at. Lots of great Google Smart things about it, lots of great books and all that kind of stuff. How easy is it to change your lifestyle? Well, it depends on, are you going up, down, or sideways, right? So sometimes lifestyle is super easy to change. Sometimes it's hard. And I look at people who have lots of times people are trying to move their way up. It used to be an old show, The Jeffersons, moving your way up. That's a lot of times people are talking about when they're talking about change your lifestyle. But other people are talking about, what, I'd like to change my lifestyle in location of where I'm living. Or I am not wanting to have all of this. We used to be somebody, let's say, who had tons of land and all this stuff and multiple places. And I'm deciding now I'd like to just get down to one, and I'd like to travel. Depends on how easy or hard is the change. I looked at the people years ago and was fascinated with the tiny house. I could never do it, but that trend was like, oh my gosh, look at what's happening in a major change of lifestyle. If your lifestyle change was given to you, sometimes it goes into the humble pie, right? Of like, okay, listen, I have to be willing to be humble and change my lifestyle completely. I'll put this out there to everybody because I know this is a huge thing. The people who have like massively, overspent and gotten in a really bad spot and whatever, and then we have paycheck issues and all of that, where it's a lifestyle change, it might be super painful, but it's also really, really helpful to go, yeah, gosh, I learned I didn't need all of that I could not do. It's different if you can do it, right? But if you cannot do it and you're buying a lifestyle or you're faking a lifestyle, or any of those kind of things, isn't that good for you? So the pain is uncomfortable, but it's helping you understand, yeah, I don't want to do that again. So what am I willing to do to not feel that way? And what lifestyle would I like to have? The fun part of lifestyle is if you get or want a lifestyle change, what would you like it to be? What would be a fun lifestyle for you? What is something that you might want to work at? Or maybe it's even easy. So I have a couple coaching friends that always remind me, gosh, Sherry, in 2 seconds, the lifestyle could be different, depending on what's happening in your life for opportunities or invitations or things like that. How hard is it to change your circumstances? Well, some take some gritty hard work. Some take decades. Some take really a lot of crying, fussing, ticking off all of that until you get to a different place. Other times it's super easy. Where it's like, listen, I got one really great win. We are in such an era that like one phone call could change your circumstances, right? One phone call could change your circumstances. So you are anywhere between the grunt and grind and build that mountain and sweat it out, or a phone call. It just depends. What I want you to know is they're both possible, and something in between and all that great stuff. That's the part that I think is exciting and motivating. And I'm willing to do either one. Doesn't matter to me. This is the most important thing to end with. And that is that every single person can change. I know that. Every single person can do it easy or hard. Every single person can make some different decisions for both themselves, their lives, their work, and all that kind of stuff that might be some of the best things for us. A lot of times the best attitude to go about it is just, this is in my benefit, even if I don't understand it right now. I've had a few of those. So a lot of it is the approach, right? But I think it's super important because a lot of people will say, oh, well, that person, geez, have you seen them? They're just never going to change. If they want to, and they're willing to do the work, or they're willing to keep, preparation and success is, you're ready and some great thing hits, right? A lot of it is that, so it just depends. I'm going to check the chat one more time before we're done here, and just see how you guys are doing. Yeah. Jonathan's making one comment here about expectations. And I think that's a fabulous comment here, Jonathan. That is, expectations causes a lot of difficulty. Expectations are a big problem, and what I don't mean is like, okay, work has an expectation of you. That's different. I'm not talking about that. A lot of us, what we do is put expectations on other people that you were supposed to do this, or I expected, this event or holiday or thing to be like that. And sometimes it just can't be. Sometimes we put severely hard expectations on ourselves. I'm like that. I tend to do that, and it needs to change. And so that's a great point, Jonathan, about, a lot of times how you're looking at expectation makes it a whole lot easier or hard or fun or any of those kind of things. I like to be respectful. We're going a whole hour. I used to teach this all day long. You can see I can do these pretty easily here. But I want to respect your time. There's not too many people that will sit for a whole hour. So thank you so much for showing up live. Those of you who are here, thank you for those of you who are rewatching the recording. If you want to put comments into the chat, I will respond. I am happy to have all of you. I am so thrilled about being able to share some of the things that we do know and make connections. Please join us on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active, but I'm also on YouTube. I am on Facebook. I am on Facebook as my real estate business. And then mostly I am over here with you guys, and I greatly appreciate it. I wish you fabulous fun and change. I wish you big change in things that haven't for a long time for you. I hope that some things change for you that you weren't even expecting or knowing that they needed to be. And I think that our whole attitude about change makes such a difference. And so I look forward to it. I'm going to work on my prickly changes. Or I'm doing them hard and I need to do them easier or learn or those sorts of things. And again, I appreciate every single one of you for showing up on the playground. We all help each other here. We all share ideas. Hey, Dave, how are you? Nice to see you. It's okay. You and I are going to talk personally, so that will be great. And I will help you with that. I do very much have a huge sensitivity and understanding that people are at different places on the playground, right? And so sometimes people are awesome and they know how to play tetherball, and other people are like, what is this thing? And I just got hit in the head with it. Like, I don't know how to do this. And so that's the part that we need to be able to share with each other. I appreciate the bravery too of even Dave saying, like, I'm struggling with this right now, because that's huge and that's bold out there. We can all appreciate that. And then we can all go, hey, I have a little comment or a share on that piece that might make it a little bit easier for you, or things that you can help me with that I am struggling with, or any of those kind of pieces. So again, I tremendously appreciate you guys. I hope you have a fabulous evening. I don't know what my next topic is, so give me a comment and I'll see what I'm going to do next. Thank you so much.